Good morning. Welcome to Northridge. We're happy to have you here this morning. Would you stand and worship with us?
Has to retreat. Just one touch, I feel the presence of heaven. Just one touch, my eyes were open to see. My heart can't help but believe. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a mountain that He can move. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can do. Just one word, you heal what's broken inside me. Just one word, and you revive every dream. Just one touch, I feel the power of heaven. Just one touch, my eyes were open to see. My heart can't help but believe. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a mountain that He can move. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can do. There's nothing that our God can do. There's not a prison wall He can't break through. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can do. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise. Let all agree, there's no power like the power of Jesus. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise. Let all agree, there's no power like the power of Jesus. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise. Let all agree. There's no power like His power. There's nothing that our God can do. There's not a mountain that He can move. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can do. There's nothing that our God can do. There's not a prison wall He can't break through. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can do. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise. Let all agree. There's no power like the power of Jesus.
When darkness tries to roll over my bones, when sorrow comes to steal the joy I own, when brokenness and pain is all I know, I won't be shaken. No, I won't be shaken. doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Shame no longer has a place to hide. I am not a captive to the lies. I'm not afraid to leave my past behind. I won't be shaken. No, I won't be shaken. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. There's power that can break off every chain. There's power that can empty out a grave. There's resurrection power that can save. There's power in your name. Power in your name. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Standing in your love.
I am holding on to faith.
You were faithful then, you'll be faithful now.
You make
Mountains move, you make giants fall. You use songs of praise to shake prison walls. And I will speak to my fear, I will preach to my doubt, that you were faithful then, you'll be faithful now.
You were faithful then, you'll be faithful now. You were faithful then, you'll be faithful now.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, church. You can have a seat, and let's go to God in prayer and prepare our hearts as Robert comes forward. Let's pray. God, our Father, we are so thankful for yet another week that you've brought us through. We thank you for the blessings, those counted and those that are too many for us to count, too many for us to know. We thank you for each and every one that's here in this room. We pray that you would be with our hurts and our worries this morning, God, that we could set them aside just for a moment so that we could dwell on you, and that you could dwell on our hearts, and that you could help us to see and to apply the things to our hearts that Robert will bring to us this morning. Just be with us and be with us through another week, we pray. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thanks, Dad. I love that song. And I sing the words and I understand it, but there's something that's just interesting that hit me this morning. And we changed a couple things in some transition here. But I was praying in the first service. And for me, I just never thought about faithful then. And when I think about then, I know when then is. I know that moment. I know that thing. I know that life situation I was facing that I didn't think there was any hope for, that God was faithful then. And I thought, man, there's no way, but God continues to be faithful now. And then and now, and when I say something like that, I know when people share that with me, they're like, think about then, and you just go, oh, I know that space in my life. And it's something that you can very clearly call. It was a really dark moment. It was a really hard time. It was a space that you just had some things you didn't know, and faithful now. And that transition, and we're going to get into that more here in a minute. Hey, I'm going to just real quick do the welcome super fast. And if you're a first-time guest here, thank you. Thanks for taking some time. We've shared this the last couple weeks. We're doing a vision series right now. So this is either a really, really good series for you to jump in and join us, or you might want us to pray so you can slide out the back door and not have to hear what we're going to do for the next year. But just what God's calling us to and things. So you get a good chance to hear. So thanks for taking some time, being a part, and sharing of what we're talking about and what God's been doing in our life over the last few years and where we see him leading us over the next year. Is in front of you, you see a QR code. If you can scan that, and that's for regular tenders and guests. If you will scan that and just put in, if you're a guest, as much information as you feel comfortable. The person who normally responds to that is in Honduras right now, so it might be a touch delayed in its return, but I'm going to do my best to get the information and get in touch with you this week if you are a first-time guest. And here, if you're a regular tender, as always, we just want to encourage you. One, make sure nobody changes cell phone numbers anymore, but we do change emails and things like that. So if you've changed an email or something along those lines, make sure you update information. Also, we just always want to encourage you to be prepared for the next step that God's calling you to and what might be happening there. So a couple of announcements that we've got coming up. October 15th from 10 to noon. If you do not know, we are a part of a network of churches. And so here in the Tri-Cities, there's 3 churches, and all of the children's ministries are going to be gathering together at Fender's Farm. And so if you have a child in children's ministry, they will be October 15th from 10 to noon. The cost is $10 each. 2 and under are free. So you can ask Ashley if you've got questions about that. Put that date on your calendar. At least kind of hold that there for a minute and see what's going on there. It's going to be a great time for all of our churches to connect and to be a part and just have a chance to build some relationships with other families who are maybe navigating the exact same space you are, who are also in church trying to figure this thing out, love Jesus well, and raise kids, which I know I am there, so I'm very thankful when I get a chance to hang out with parents that are of high school kids. So also, coming up on October 31st, our town does a big Halloween event where a lot of the stores open up and they give out candy. And in the past, we're going to continue what we've done in the past. We set up s'more stations outside. And so you can start bringing in the graham crackers, the chocolate, and the marshmallows. If you want to buy some of the little burnable sticks, you can bring some of those as well. And that way, and we also need 3 fire pits. So if you're like, oh, I've got this awesome fire pit, we can have a fire pit contest outside, see whose is the coolest. But we just need 3 of those. So if you would let us know if you have one that you can bring. And then what our goal is we're not giving out toothbrushes, we're not giving out Twix. We're kind of in the middle. And it is a chance to do something a touch unique, a touch different, but also a chance to spend some time with people as they walk through to hear part of their story. And we've had, believe it or not, some crazy conversations standing around s'mores and fire pits over the last few years as we've done this type of event and partnering with the town just to be a part of the community and do some things there. So that is, of course, coming up on October 31st from 6 to 8. So we'll need people that want to be here and have conversations, but also all of us to bring in some marshmallows and s'mores and things like that, as there are several hundred kids who float up and down the street that night, and we want to be able to reward the parents as well, let them have a s'more and a marshmallow. So, all right. So we're finishing up our vision series today of kind of what's next year, and I want to start with telling you this. A couple years ago, COVID hit, and my oldest son, he's playing keys this morning, got bored. And he picked up a deck of cards and a Penn and Teller video and started learning to do magic. And he got like surprisingly good, surprisingly quick. And he had this one trick that I absolutely love, and I really have a hard time explaining it. But he'd get 2 people who they're dating or married or something like that. Maybe they were siblings. He's like, you have a connection. I can tell you have a connection. And he would get them to draw cards, and they would both end up drawing an ace, and they're just blown away. They both have a different ace. And he would say, but I feel this other thing. And he had pre-flipped these cards, and he would flip those over, and those were both aces. And you're just going, oh my goodness. And it would blow your mind. And people were just kind of crazy. And we actually have some friends that are neighbors, and we would have this party every year. And we would come over, and we kind of encouraged him to do this trick for this couple that was there. And the guy, like a year later, he was like, dude, my mind is blown. And he still talks about that trick a couple years down the road, of just because like this thing just kind of like blew his mind. And the thing about magic is that, of course, it's not real, but it's something that you're, the quicker than the eye kind of thing, and they can take and move cards, and they can do things inside of those decks and things that allow them to do tricks that cause our minds to go, there is no way that is possible. And being the parent at home, we got to be the guinea pigs. So sometimes we got to go behind the curtain, because when he was doing a trick, we would see the card, or we would see the shift, or we would see the pull. But then we got to a point where, even as his parents would be like, so how's that one happen? He's like, good magician never tells their secrets. And he literally to this day has a large handful of tricks that he has never told us how to do. Now, I just said, magic's not real. And I think any good magician would tell you that I'm just smarter than you in that moment. I have found a way to make you think something's real that's not. When we think about magic and not understanding, though, it just causes our brain to think. And it challenges me when I look at what we're going to talk about today. We're going to be in John chapter 2. If you've got your Bible, you can open to that. Or if you're using your app or you're starting your notes, you can go to John chapter 2. We're going to be reading the first 10 verses, and it's about Jesus turning the water to wine. We get one book to teach from, and so we've heard this story before. We all kind of pull these things in, and you grab these stories, and so when you come up here, it's like, this is nothing new. It's probably very rare that we get deep into Habakkuk or something like that, and you're going, I did not know that verse was there. But, we get into this place where we're in John chapter 2. You're like, well, I started reading John. I only made it to chapter 4, but I've read that John water to wine thing like 19 times. And so we've all heard this story. We've all been a part of this, and we've done these things here. And the thing about miracles that are hard sometimes is they just seem so unrealistic. Like if Jesus would have come in and the story would have gone like this. When they write it, they're like, there's these vases and they're empty and he pours water in them and he's like abracadabra and it turns into wine. And you kind of get that point. But if they would have been like, Jesus was walking down the street one day. He went to Peter's house and he walked in and Peter's wife was making dinner and everyone seemed a little more hungry than normal. At that point in time, Jesus said, I'm going to be the original Instapot, and I'm going to take frozen to finished in 7 minutes. And he takes the chicken and it's laying there, and immediately he just cooks it. That's something I can wrap my brain around because I understand an Instapot. We have all the ninja supplies. We can put frozen anything in, and it's cooked in 7 minutes, and we can have a meal. And that's what we want inside of our life. We want the magic. We want to know how they make the Statue of Liberty disappear. We want to know how the card ends up in our pocket. We want to know how the things happen and how stuff goes and what we're doing to make it real in our life. But miracles get really, really, really hard to understand and hard to grab a hold of. And so what I want to do is I want to jump in. I want to read the first couple verses in this here and in John chapter 2. And then we'll read these last few and the rest of 10 there and go from there. And it says, on the third day, a wedding took place at Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, they have no more wine. Woman, why did you involve me? Now, not sure he said it quite that snarky. He was probably like, woman, why do you involve me? I don't know, that might be just as snarky. We all have kids. Well, if you have kids, you understand. And they can, especially in the teenage years, they can lack for how to say things. However Jesus said it, I'm sure it was not a sin. But somehow he looked at his mom and said, woman, why did you involve me? With a question mark, not an exclamation point. And my hour has not yet come. And his mother said to the servants, do whatever he tells you. So what's happening up to this point? One, we've got a wedding that's going on for 3 days. And you thought your wedding was expensive. And so he's 3 days in here, and my grandmother used to always say, Robert, what do fish and relatives have in common? After 3 days, they both start to stink. And so we are starting, they've spent 3 days with family and friends. They are spending bukus of money for this celebration. It's how things went back then. They just did these huge celebrations and these things. And so we're at this point, and the wine is gone. The drink is gone and there is nothing else. And Jesus' mom's looking around and she's thinking about her friends and she's thinking about these kids and she's going, this isn't how this is going to be. And she goes to Jesus and she says, do this magic trick for my friends. It's exactly what we did to Landon a year ago, or a couple years ago. The difference is what Jesus did. What Jesus did in that moment changed everything. Because when she looked there, see, Mary saw something inside of Jesus that no one else had seen, that no one else walking this earth knew. He had pulled along a few disciples. He had grabbed some people who were around. He was starting to tell them about some things. But Mary knew something. She had this idea, this thought, and she saw this need. And then I love how when she kind of goes and she gets to this point and then she turns, and this is a very mom thing to do. She doesn't look back at Jesus. She just looks at all the other people in the room and she's like, whatever he says, do it. And so now there's a group of people standing here going, I feel very, very torn. There's a whole bunch of people following this guy, calling him master, and now mama's saying, doesn't matter whatever he says, you just do it. And he said he didn't want to, and she's saying I have to. And so there's this really unique kind of tension and conflict here with these servants that are in the room. And so let's look at the rest of those verses as we kind of navigate through this. And it said, nearby stood 6 stone water jars, the kind used by the Jews for ceremonial washing, each holding from 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, fill the jars with water. So they filled them to the brim. Then he told them, now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet. They did so. And the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. He did not realize where it had come from, though. He did not realize where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. Then he called the bridegroom aside and said, everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink. But you have saved the best until now. My honest thought about miracles is I think we've come so used to seeing cool things that we are missing amazing things. And I think this is a very, very, very good example. We have in this thing in our pocket that we can pull out and we can tap and we can ask it questions and we can do all these things and just tons of information. And if you would have thought, man, 10 years ago, where would this wouldn't even be possible? And now what it can do even in that length of time. And I think back, if you check my message, my text thread with my family, the 4 people in that individually, and then us as a group, I send a ton of videos, things that I think like little clips, things that might mean something to them. Like personally, like for Landon, it's a lot of guitar stuff. For Colby, it's baseball. Brody, it's soccer. And I will send like motivational clips. Colby loves Kobe Bryant, and so these clips of him talking when he was alive, I'll send these little things and stuff, and just encouragement and motivation to, hey, if you work hard, there are some things, you're young, you can accomplish some things, you got some talent. And Melissa and I send a lot of like sermons and clips and things and speakers and stuff, and like of course the pastor sends those. And I'm not trying to anything at all. It's just something we do a lot, and so we enjoy that. And so people who speak at conferences and stuff that we enjoy will send these little short clips. And what I love is these churches and conferences, they'll actually break the clips down to the little part that I want. And then I can take and just send that clip, because a few years ago what I had to do is I had to take and find a YouTube video that I liked, and I would copy the link of the video and I would put it in and I would text that to her and go, if you'll go to 1 hour, 48 minutes and 52 seconds and you'll watch from there for the next 19.123 seconds, you will get exactly to the point to see the exact thing that I would want you to see. And then I go, well, actually what I used to have to do was get a VHS tape, and I'd have to go to the post office and I would have to write a note, and then I would put that in the mail, and then I would call her, and I'm like, nope, I wouldn't call her. I'd have to drive home to call her, or I'd have to go outside and use a payphone. And then I thought, well, how do we explain to anybody below 35 what a payphone is? And then I thought, you know what, just Google it. And then I thought, I'm back to the point of here's where we have all this stuff in our hand. And so then you would call and you have a VHS tape and you do those things, because things just move so fast. And the more cool we get, the less amazing feels. I remember growing up, and I still have this, and I hate that we'd packed it up, and I wish I had it today. I had a cassette to 8-track converter that we carried in our 1978 baby blue Ford Thunderbird. And I mean, it was this, it would not fit in this room. Like it was bigger, longer than this. I see a few heads nodding. You understand what I'm talking about. And so we had this big, huge Ford Thunderbird, and it had an 8-track player, and cassettes had come out. And so now you've got an 8-track player in your car, and it's very hard to get. It's not like now you can, Facebook Marketplace, find whatever you want and replace it in 10 minutes, and you just plug and play and go. But they made these huge. I'm talking, they were bigger than, they were 2 8-tracks basically, and you could put a cassette tape in and put it into your 8-track player, and it would play. And in that moment, if you would have asked anyone, how does it get any better? You're like, I get my 8 tracks and I get all of these new cassette fancy things they've got coming out. I can keep everything I've got. It could never possibly get better. And now for $10 a month, my whole family has access to millions of songs. We could never listen to them all. We all can have our own taste. We can put Bluetooth headphones that connect to our ears, and so I don't have to be bothered by the odd music that teenagers like all the time that comes through and that I have to listen to. Like, I can live in a space where I have everything right at my hand. Because the reality is that so many times we get to a space where what we think is great and is so great, we understand it in the space that it's in, and we could never understand it being better. We can never understand that there could be more. Because I've got 16 songs on a cassette tape, or I've got 8 songs on an 8-track. We could never fathom that millions of songs would be just by clicking play. And we can carry it with us anywhere we go. And that's one of the things that I love about this story, is when you step into this story a minute, we talk a lot about, just the different things that are happening. And I think, like I mentioned earlier, one of my favorite things about this is Mary. And she has so many really special moments as we get to see her when she becomes pregnant with Jesus, and as she navigates that space and we see him come, she has these treasure in her heart moments that we get to hear about. But there is something about a mother that is unique, that they just know some things. Like, as a dad, I love my kids fiercely, but I can be a hard father. Like, life's hard enough. It's harder when you're stupid. Let's stop being stupid. Like, and my boys are like, we're to a point now where it's just like boys, and like, we know it's harder when you're stupid. And I want them to get to this point, and I want to go through these things, but like, I can be hard, and it's actually something that I've said here before, and it's something that I struggle with, of like, what's that balance of being a good and a loving and a directing father, but yet not going over the board. And so I say it occasionally from hearing a thing of, hey, there's a touch of accountability. Now I've got a room full of people that have heard, and if you see Robert going like, crazy, or something like that, like, hey, you might want to, take a chill pill, rein it in a bit. Let's try to fix this. But a mom, even in those hard moments, there's something she sees. There's something she knows. And I love that part of this story. But the thing that stands out to me is not all the crazy stuff that goes on and not all the things that happen in here. But there's a few people who got to be a part of the story that showed up that day just to do the normal. They had their 8-track. They had their cassette. And they had no clue that that Apple Music and iTunes was coming. But they showed up to do the normal that day. They showed up to do their job. And they get into a discussion between a mom and a son, because there was a need, because there was an opportunity. And whatever he says, I want you to do it. And they did. And they filled the jars, and I don't think there was any abracadabra, hocus pocus. I think Jesus prayed to his Father. And God granted that prayer. And he said, take it and go. And they walked out of the room, and they took it. Can you imagine how scared, how nervous, how fearful? I'm nervous up here a lot of days. These people are taking something that literally was like foot washing bowls that are now full of water that they got from wherever, that is now supposedly wine. And they're hoping. And they take it, and they go, and they serve it. Just have to be praying, God, please, let me live through this. Let this not be a total debacle. And the master of the banquet, the master of the ceremony, looks and says, I can't believe what you've done. Their heart had to sink. And then he said, because he wasn't looking at them, but they're like, we brought this out. We're going to end up getting in trouble for this. And he said, so many people save the bad stuff to the end after everybody's taste buds and their senses are a little less. But you saved the best for last. You saved what's to come. Not then, but now. You saved that for the end of what's going to happen. And I'll tell you, like, it's Vision Sundays. We have an opportunity here as a church. We have an opportunity over this next year, I believe, for some water to wine moments. We have an opportunity for God to do something big through us. But it requires some obedience. It requires some risk. And it requires some faithfulness in that. Last week we handed these cards out, and I joked about not being cool enough. I actually do. I delete the 100 when it pops in my phone because I'm not cool enough to use that phrase. One day I will be. I keep trying to be like Noah and Corbin, and one day I'll be a cool youth pastor guy, and I'll be able to use these things. But we all understand what being 100% in means. We tell our kids that. Our parents told us that. We tell our employees, our co-workers, hey, let's be committed. Let's be in. Let's go 100%. Let's stop showing up and giving half. Hey, you say you want to be a great baseball player. Don't give 30%. Give 100%. We even say 110. And I don't know how you give more than you have, but we encourage our kids to do it all the time. And maybe we hope if they try and give 110, they'll actually get to 50. I don't know, but we're given this. But 100%. We understand that phrase. And on the back, we had these steps. And as a church and as a leadership, we prayed about what God was calling us to this year. And you're going to see these about a plan, prioritize, and percentage. And I guess there's a little Southern Baptist in us somewhere. We got a really good P alliteration. That percentage is a little hard. It's a hard jump, but you understand the point there. But here's the thing I want to just say as I'm finishing up here today is when we make a plan in our life to commit to something, we make that a priority. We invest a percentage of our time, our talents, and our treasures to make that happen. And as a church, we have seen some amazing things happen. In the 14 and a half years of our network, since 2014 of our campus and what God's done. And I understand that we are all busy and we all have a lot going on. For Northridge to take the step that I believe that our leadership and staff around all three campuses believe is going to require all of us to invest. And I think what that means is something very specific. It means that if you sign up to serve in children's ministry, because we get a chance to provide the hope of Jesus to kids who are walking through that room, who some of them, it may be something where they are brought in here and they get to hang out, and it's maybe the only time they hear about Jesus. And for most, I think 99.9%, there's a whole lot of parents sitting in this room, and if this is your off shift and you just serve, there's parents sitting in this room who brought their kids today that are praying for another voice to echo the truth of the gospel and the truth of the hope of Jesus into the life of their kid. Because they're taking every day, and it's everything they've got, and they're trying the best they can. Because I know we did. And we still are, and Melissa and I, raising 3 boys, and we are doing our best to invest in them. And so when you make that a priority, when you plan and you say, God, I'm going to serve in children's ministry, and I make that a priority, and I'm investing a portion of my time, a percentage of my time to make that happen, that means that here in a couple weeks when you're on the schedule and you get a call to go to the beach and go to Charleston, and you're going, it's just children's ministry. I love the beach. I would love to go to the beach. Call me. I will go with you. I think I'm off in 2 weekends, so I would have a chance that I could do this. But we so many times go, I'm just serving, there's other people. But if God has called you and you make that commitment, what we're asking for the next year, and I know that's a big ask. I know that's a lot. We're asking that when you get that call, that you say, hey, I would love to go to the beach. Could we do that the following weekend or on this date here? Because I made a commitment to my church that I'm going to be there on that Sunday, and I am sharing the hope of Jesus with a bunch of 3 to 5-year-olds that most of them just throw Cheez-Its at me all day long. But I'm praying for them today, and I'm praying that maybe we find a softer snack that won't hurt me so bad, and that we can move into that. At least I don't leave with, orange cheese all over my face as I go, and that I get a chance to see one kid understand a little bit more about Jesus that day. You know, I shared about those videos earlier, and churches all over town, and maybe not all over our town, but all over the world, they take and they put these videos and they shorten these things down and they put them on social media because it is a place where everyone is at. And there's so much stuff that distracts people and pushes them away from the hope of Jesus and what it is. And it would be awesome if you were a part of our group and your service was you took the sermon each week and you broke that down into clips. And when you're doing that and your buddies call up on Tuesday and say, hey man, can you go to dinner tonight? You go, no. I actually can't. Could we do that tomorrow? Could we do that the next day? Because I volunteer at my church, and I've put aside Tuesday nights to where I can break down the clips of our sermons so that we can put them on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and all these other places, because what we believe is that the hope of Jesus is really important. And we're sharing that with people through social media and through the market that we have there as people are flipping through and watching those things. It is such a huge commitment to step in and to serve and to be a part. But even bigger than that, the return that we get to see people come to understand the hope of Jesus, to commit their lives to following him, to live every day doing their best to be obedient to the call of Christ, to deny ourselves and follow him. And a part of that is definitely finances. Our time, our talents, our treasures. I've got a friend who coaches esports, and I remember sitting with him one day, and we were talking about the exercise plans and working out, and he was laughing, and he was like, Robert, I've got guys that are drinking 9 energy drinks in a 3-hour session. Like, we're playing these games, and we're sitting there, and they're like just pounding energy drinks faster than they can get them open almost. And he said, my goal is to get them to maybe 1. I'd love to see them at none, because I think that's a healthier option. But he said, if I just walked in one day and said, if you're going to be on this team, you can no longer have an energy drink. He said, I could create serious health problems for them. Now, that's a tough story to kind of sometimes compare, but I think the concept is there because I think Jesus, God's pretty big. And there's actually some things where he says, hey, step in, take a risk. Make that push. I can do something here. I promise you, you're going to see the return isn't always how we want it. But what I will say is this. If today you're sitting here and you're going, Robert, there's no way I could tithe. Kind of traditionally, the church sees giving as tithing as 10%. And, you know, if I make $100 a week, I mean, there's no way I could give 10 of those dollars away. Absolutely not. Like my family wouldn't eat. And I don't know, I'm not arguing that with you. That's not my job. I've been there. And I wish that I would have made some different decisions, but I've made some decisions where maybe I held back what I knew was right for me. I'm not saying it's right for you. But what I want to challenge you to today is if you're at 0% and 10% isn't doable, go to 0.5%. Go to 1%. Take a step of obedience towards what God's calling you to there. One of the things that's interesting about this, as I've mentioned, is we're a network of churches. Right now, one of our churches needs a new roof, and it's $90,000. And in that space, when we are faithful here, like we pay our bills and we do things and stuff like that. We keep lights on and that kind of stuff. We talk about that. But in moments where God gives us excess, we exist because 2 other campuses believed in Erwin and believed in launching something over here. And we get a chance, being like the grandchild, to turn around and give back to the grandparents and to help them out. We're 2 or 3 generations down the road here. And we get a chance to turn around and invest back in and help make some things happen. And as big as that sounds, even bigger than that, is the change that happens as we go. And there's some pictures up here on the screen of an investment. There's our lovely crew all masked on the flight to Honduras and where they're going. And let's see there's a couple more there. Here's a couple pictures from the van of where they're serving at as they're driving through and some things. I think there's one more there of them doing that. And we'll just show part of the video for fun. It's good. They're below the equator. So the guy in the orange shirt, his name's John Oakley. If you don't know him, John was here day one with Jim Richmond. Thank you, Gary. And this morning, as we were praying this morning at 8:30 here at the church, and as we were starting to worship at 9:30, I'm not sure where that put them below the equator, but they were in a service and they were worshiping, and there they are practicing and things in a language that I don't speak very well, to lead people in the hope of Jesus. You know, we get a chance to stand on the shoulders of the people who come before us. In last service, I got a chance, and apparently I didn't word it very well. Chris and Carrie are not leaving our church. Somebody came up and they was like, "Is Chris leaving?" And I said, "If he is, I'm quitting." So we're not doing that, but I'm very fortunate to have had Chris here, and we got a chance to. He actually had to slip out. He's speaking at another church in town today. They're without a pastor, and he spoke here, and then he stepped over there, and he came here. Attended, and then went over there. Actually came to serve with babies. He came to work in the nursery, and then went to preach at a church. His whole morning was serving, but he slipped in here, and actually I'm gonna have Noah come up here, and he actually prayed with Noah and some stuff. And for some parents, man, I'm sorry, some things kind of get relayed and disseminated like they do sometimes. But you can just come up here. We'll do this up here, and band's going to come up, and we'll kind of finish up here. But Chris led so well. I've known him almost 20 years now, and he's led so well and done so much. And we are in the space that we're in because of him, because of Eric, because of Gary, and the space and what they've done and how they've invested in our church and what they've done for so many things. And so we were able to kind of just tell Chris thank you for the time he spent as our pastor, for the time he spent serving us. We're super thankful he still takes time and steps in the stage. But one of the things God's doing is he continues to provide people who are a part of the journey and a part of this process. And this has not been an easy transition. I'll be 47 here in a couple of months, and I started student ministry when I was 20. So I've done this a while now, and there's very little, if anything, I care more about, especially inside of the church, than seeing middle school, high school, college-age students grow in their relationship with Jesus, come to understand him and believe in that. And with that, though, this is a lot of responsibility here, and it takes a lot of time to love you guys well and to love that. And in that space, about a year ago, this goofy Oregon kid here bebopped into town, and I'm going to let him tell his story. He and his family did, but I'll hand this to you. But our leadership over the last couple of weeks has prayed, and we spent a couple of months actually with Noah now and talked with him about some things. And the leadership here at our church and our network has voted Noah in to be our new student pastor here at the Erwin campus, which is a monster deal. Once again, we tried to hire his wife. I've hired Noah for 2 jobs, and both of them I showed up, was like, "Hey, is Lauren available?" He's like, "No, we got a new baby." I was like, "Fine, you'll do." And so his wife is way better than him, much like at my house, my wife is way better than me. But it's hard. But we are super blessed to have Noah and Lauren on our staff team. They have Parker and Mary Oliver. If you see them pushing around that. We're just super, super blessed to have them. And so I'm going to let him just share a couple things about him and then lead us into communion and worship. So thank you.
So yeah, I'm Noah, and I'm super blessed to get to be here as the youth pastor. I've been coming here now for a year, which is really weird to say. It's been that long. And it's actually kind of beautiful how God works. The first time that me and my wife came here is actually Robert speaking. And he was speaking on the needs for youth ministry. And I can't remember much of the sermon after that because my heart was pounding out of my chest. Like, youth ministry to me is a huge deal. Like, it means so much more to me personally than any of you could know. And if you want to know, you can come ask me. I can tell you that story. But it was really a youth pastor that changed everything. I mean, Jesus, through the youth pastor, changed everything in my life. I was really like the water at the party in those basins that didn't really do much for the party at all until Jesus, through this youth pastor, changed me into that wine that could affect change for the kingdom. I kid you not when I say I probably would have been in prison if it wasn't for this youth pastor. My life was a little different. So if you want to hear that story, you can ask. But just being able to be a youth pastor now, and I have been in other circumstances, it means so much to me, and it humbles me so greatly that this family, this church family, would have me do that. And just know that I will spend as much time in prayer for your kids and for the youth here that I possibly can. And we, as we enter into community, thinking about that community with your kids, thinking about the communion we're about to take, thinking about the wine that we're about to take, I just thank God so much for turning me into something that can be a part of something like this. So in a moment, we're going to take this wine, his blood and his body. The band's going to play. And I just want you guys to think about the thing that God is changing you into, the thing that God is changing this family into. Just be in awe of him today with each other. Sorry if I get a little tearful, but just be in awe of him today as the band plays. And just remember where he's brought you from and where you are now. I'm going to pray real quick and the band's going to start playing. You guys can come up. If you're new, please join. If you're a believer, please join. It doesn't matter if you're from this church or not. God, I just thank you so much for this chance to commune with you. Jesus, for your sacrifice on the cross, for making this possible for us to do. God, I just pray for Northridge as a whole. Pray for the youth specifically, that this community would see something different in us, that they would see that miracle that you did with the water to wine in all of us. In your name, amen.
You call the sun to rise. You lay it down to rest.
nothing comes close to